Russia is turning up the heat on the battlefield, and the timing is no accident. Just days before, US President Donald Trump sits down with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska this Friday. Russian troops have launched some of its most aggressive strikes in months to reshape the map of Ukraine before the first US-Russia meet since 2021. Take a look at these visuals right now on your screens. On Tuesday, Russia claimed it hit Ukrainian defense plants, drone sites, storage sites, and even training facilities, while shooting down nearly 180 Ukrainian drones in a single day. And that's what Russia has to say. Of course, Ukraine tells a different story. It has said that it repelled 91 separate assaults in just 24 hours across 6 regions on the front lines. The heaviest fighting is in Pokrovsk, a city whose fall could change the course of the war. Because Pokrovsk isn't just another city. It has been described as the beating heart of Ukraine's coal and steel industry. Well, the city's massive coal mine yields over 5 million tons a year, fueling steelworks that keep Ukraine's economy as well as its defense industry alive. Well, if Russia takes it, Ukraine's steel output could plunge to as little as 2 million, costing $5 billion in lost exports. But the stakes of taking Pokrovsk are not just economic. The city is a logistical hub. Its railways and highways keep weapons, ammunition, and reinforcements flowing to the Ukrainian troops that are busy holding the Donbas line. So if Moscow takes Pokrovsk, it rather gets a launch pad for deeper offensives into central Ukraine, along with control of valuable coal reserves to feed the Kremlin's war machines. While Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has said that giving up Donbas would be like opening the door to a third war in Ukraine, because it would leave the rest of the country, complete Ukraine, exposed. This military push is coming as diplomacy takes center stage in the war. This Friday, on August 15th, Trump and Putin will meet at Alaska's Elmendorf Air Force Base for the first US and Russia summit in a span of 4 years, because the last happened in 2021. The White House is calling it a listening exercise, but Trump has hinted that both sides may have to swap land to reach a ceasefire. The problem is that Ukraine, the country at the center of this war, will not be at the talks table. And so, ahead of the Trump and Putin meeting, Zelensky and European leaders held a virtual conference to stress one point: no deals about Ukraine without Ukraine. And according to reports that are not surprising, 3/4 of Ukrainians reject any plan that trades land for peace. And well, inside the Ukrainian military, that opposition is even stronger. On Wednesday, Russia stated that its stance on ending the war in Ukraine remains unchanged since Putin set out his conditions last year. So, what are the conditions? Number 1, Kiev must abandon its NATO ambitions. Number 2, withdraw troops from parts of Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson that it still controls. And number 3, recognize Russian sovereignty over Crimea and all occupied regions. Russia, as of now, controls 19% of Ukraine, including all of Crimea, all of Luhansk, more than 70% of Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson regions, and slivers of the Kharkiv, Sumy, Mykolaiv, and Dnipropetrovsk regions. Ukraine, of course, calls all these demands by Russia an ultimatum. But Moscow says it's the price for peace. Ukraine has repeatedly said it will never recognize Russian occupation of its land. And most countries recognize Ukraine's territory within its 1991 borders. Based on the current front lines, Putin's demand would entail Ukraine ceding an additional 21,000 square kilometers to Russia. Zelensky has said that Russia must agree to a ceasefire before any kind of territorial issues are discussed. He would reject any Russian proposal that Ukraine pull its troops from the eastern Donbas region, and cede its defensive lines. But there are concerns that the Russian president has his eyes set on Ukraine's larger Donbas region, which includes parts of the Donetsk region that it still holds. The question is, why Donbas is so important? Let's revisit now. For Russia, Donbas is a springboard for future offensives. For Ukraine, it's both a shield and an important part of its identity. Donbas shaped some of the most important battles of World War II. And in this war, the fierce fight for Bakhmut and Avdiivka cost both sides dearly, which Russia ultimately captured. The cities still under Ukrainian control are tied together by one north-south road. And if Ukraine loses them, Ukraine's entire defensive line could collapse. The region holds tens of millions of dollars worth of fortifications, which is an important rail network and mineral-rich land. For Moscow, Donbas also means resources. The soil is rich in coal, feeding Ukraine's steel industry. The Donetsk football club is also nicknamed as the Miners. And as mentioned right now, Russia is pushing towards Pokrovsk, a key city in the region. And that's why Donbas, for both the sides, Ukraine and Russia, is rather way more than just a battlefield, because it is the key to the war's future. Well, as the Trump-Putin Alaska summit approaches, for Russia, every gain on the battlefield is leverage in the talks table. The question is, will the war stop with a handshake? Or will it take far more than words to bring this war to an end? Well, we will be closely watching.